Welcome to Wine Enthusiast IGTV series, The Rich History and Wines of Cariñena. This IGTV series is produced by Wine Enthusiast and brought to you by Grandes Vinos. My name is Lauren Mowery. I'm a contributing editor of Wine Enthusiast, and I'll be your host for this series. Each week this month, we'll bring you a different perspective on the wines of Cariñena, from its history, terroir, grapes, to food and culture. This week, I'll give you an overview of Cariñena's diverse wine styles and varied terroirs. Cariñena, a historical wine region between Madrid and Barcelona, boasts wines as diverse as its terroirs. Broadly speaking, Cariñena is a hot, rocky, windy place with vineyards scattered across rugged mountains and fertile valleys. The Ebro, Spain's mightiest river, provides an oasis-like lifeline to villages and old cities. The river carved space for the region's ancient vineyards where vines grow today. Though some view terroir as a collection of singular elements, soils and climate, for example, terroir is the synergy of its parts. For Cariñena, that includes cultural history, the wine producers, local grapes, and even modern consumers who now welcome the diverse styles of the region. As for the climate, Californians would feel right at home. Cariñena's long, warm Mediterranean summers help ripen Grenache and Carignan grapes. Some describe the cold winters as hellish, though this seasonal chill gives grapes the chance to rest in dormancy. Various altitudes and exposures turn winemakers into artists in the cellar. Cooler temperatures at higher elevations produce fresh, bright, tense wines. Warmer temperatures down in the valleys often produce fuller, heavier wines. Winemakers may blend these components or highlight single exceptional sites. Add Cariñena's range of soils to the mix, and there are endless combinations to play with. 4 key soil types include slate, limestone, clay, and alluvial. These are poor soils with low fertility, but a wisdom prevails. Vines that struggle produce better quality wine. Clay, though inappropriate for wet climates, performs well in Cariñena's arid conditions because it holds water. This is especially good for old vines which are dry farmed. Slate soils lead to wines with lighter tannins and expressive aromatics. Think of wines with great perfume. Limestone soils are known for bringing balance and age-worthiness to a wine. And finally, alluvial soils full of stones retain heat, which lends power to wines. Cariñena's viticulture dates back thousands of years, but the region remained fairly isolated until now. As markets have opened up, consumer curiosity has created demand for the storied wines of Cariñena. Of course, the important part of this story is not what Cariñena produced in the past, but what it is producing now. And the answer is wines of exceptional quality and character.
I'm here today with Pedro Ballesteros, MW, talking about the soils and terroir of Cariñena. So what can you tell us about the terroirs of Cariñena?
The terroir, in my view, is not just the soil. This is just like a kind of a marketing thing, etc. It's many more things. Even though in Cariñena you have a huge variety of soils. You have 6 different types of soils. 4 of them, in my view, are very qualitative. You have slates, you have limestone, you have clay, and you have kind of alluvial soils, kind of the galets roulés of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And this is a very important issue. But the real thing about terroir is this combination between the soil, the plant, the climate, the people, and the history. And even more important, the client. You have to understand, Cariñena has always been, since the 16th century, a very well-known region, very much appreciated. Already people in the 16th and 17th centuries spoke about the different soils and the quality of Cariñena. That Cariñena is a region that has been, until the end of the 20th century, isolated. It is now that it's being opened, and it's now, if the people appreciate wines of Cariñena, that you will see more and more what the differences in the soil are. But the basic thing is to have this access to the markets and these new kind of Cariñena styles that are showing these differences. But just to keep it in mind, you have slates, you have clay, you have limestones, and you have the Galais Goulet or the Colluvial Soils.
So Pedro, you mentioned there are 4 different key soil types in the Cariñena region. Let's start with limestone. Where is that found generally, and how does that influence the wines?
Yes. First of all those types of soils are poor soils, are soils with very low fertility. Always has been that the vines, they were recommended to be planted in poor soils. Vines thrive in very rich soils, but they don't give a lot of quality when their soils have a very high fertility. And Cariñena, maybe more unfortunately than fortunately, has always been a region with very poor soils, low organic material, low fertility, and this is a very good condition for quality grapes. Then, when you have this basic condition and you have the adequate climate, according to the different types of soils, you will get different expressions of the wine, mostly of the Grenache variety. When you are dealing with slate soils, those soils, they have a different acidity to limestone soils that are much more basic, and there you will find soils that are giving less tannins, a very assertive aromatic expression, very outspoken wines, while limestone will give, because the vigor of the vines is lesser, you will have wines that are more balanced, maybe less intense in aromatic expression, but giving more balance, and I think giving a better capacity for lasting for a very, very long time. Then you have the colluvial soils, similar to Galais Goulet in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, soils in which there is a particular interaction between the heat that is being retained by the stones and the vine, because those stones are releasing heat in the night, and so the vines, they get an extra maturity that is going to give more power to the wines. And then basically you have also a lot of soils with clay. Clay is not a good thing in wet climates, in climates with a lot of humidity, but it's an extremely good thing in climates with with very little rain, as it is the climate in Cariñena. Because by this, the very old vines, they can survive, they can give very good quality grapes, even in a very difficult year in which you don't have any rain for 4 or 5 months. Remember that most of the old vineyards in Cariñena are dry growth.
So why don't you tell us what makes the wines of Cariñena so unique?
It's the combination of history, climate, the land, the grape varieties, the people making the wine. A very long history. People have been producing wine in Cariñena from my lineage. It was already with the Romans, but this is not important. The important thing is what they are producing now, no? But this is one distinctive factor. The soils, I already mentioned, these huge variety of soils, the place, the altitude, the climate, the exposure of the different vineyards, and then and the grape varieties, those Garnacha or Grenache and Cariñena or Carignan grapes. This is what is making Cariñena as a whole a unique region. And then within this unique region, you have a number of very, very unique wines.
Today, I'm tasting Corona de Aragon. It's a wine from Cariñena, which is in Aragon in northeastern Spain.
A 2018.
It's 100% Garnacha, made from old vines. The vineyards are in high elevation sites, around 500 meters altitude, and the vines are about 40 years old. So let's see how that interaction with elevation and age plays out in this wine. First, let's look at the color. This is a ruby hued with tints of purple, obviously a very youthful wine. This is a 2018 after all. It's transparent, which is consistent with Garnacha, very much like Pinot Noir. Let's see how it smells. So pretty aromatic. You have a lot of red fruit, which is also consistent with Garnacha, a little bit of black pepper spice, a little bit of licorice even, some herbal character. But it's really those red fruits, strawberries, raspberries that stand out. See how it tastes. It's a really pretty wine. The acid is quite high for Garnacha, which is also known as Grenache in the US. It's probably because of these high elevation vineyards at, again, 500 meters above sea level. It gives a real brightness and a juiciness. There's a lovely red fruit character that's consistent with the aromatics. Because of its freshness, its fruit forward character, I can see this with a lot of foods. It would be a great weeknight wine, of course, because it's not too challenging and it's very juicy. So I can see this with all sorts of burgers, from lamb burgers to pork burgers to even salmon burgers, roast pork as well, roasted lamb. It's quite a versatile wine, even bean stews and other things that are fall appropriate. And speaking of fall, maybe that roast turkey for the holidays. It's delicious. Thank you for joining.